Hello and welcome to another episode of Loose Canon, and that is incorrect. So close. And there's gonna be a little bit of a feedback at the start there. I tried to mute the Twitch channel before because I have the Twitch channel open to have the chat. I tried to mute it before I started. There was no option to mute it on the non-live screen, so I don't know. Oh,
Who knows
how
anymore?
how long have we been doing this?
A long time for us to be some blueberries at this.
It's been like 3 years, I think. I think. What are we? We're in Lightfall. So there's Lightfall, Witch Queen, Beyond Light. I think we started in Shadowkeep.
Yeah. No, we started before that. We started in just before we started before, dude. We started before, or did we start back then? Yeah, because we made predictions about the Riven raid. So we've been doing this for a minute.
There's no chance in hell we were talking about
Yes,
the Riven
sir.
raid.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because I remember, because that was the podcast that was scrapped, and that was the one that we predicted that we would fight a dragon in the raid. Absolutely. Because the next week the raid came out, or the next 2 weeks later, the raid came out, and it was Riven the Taken Dragon.
Oh fucking way. I'm going on this.
Yep, it's there. Go all the way back, you'll see. The audio sucked sometimes,
Oh, I
mainly because
bet.
of my end. My end was the worst.
The one about the Dreaming City, published
See?
August 7th. Oh my god. It's August 6th. Tomorrow's our anniversary.
Oh shit! Happy anniversary, Loose Cannon podcast.
Happy anniversary, Loose Cannon podcast. That's insane. Yeah, the one about the Dreaming City was our first episode. And then we had the one about
Wow.
the Whisper, the one about the Ahamkara, the one about
Yeah.
Varric's Most Loyal, the one about the Haunted Forest, Black Armory, Part 2, Part 3, Drifter. Oh, here's a great one. Here's a great one. You ready for this? The
Okay.
one about the light and dark. So
Oh.
back then, even back then, we were calling it the Light and Dark Saga.
Yep. I told you.
We're
We don't
always
know
right
all the
there.
answers, just the right
Yeah,
ones.
that's so funny. That's so funny to
Uh,
say because it's like while that may be true, it's like yeah, we know the right ones. It's just that they're all scattered in all the wrong ones.
that's right. That's right.
Oh
Well,
man,
if you throw a million darts in the air, you're bound to get a bullseye at some point.
5 years. That's
Yeah.
insane. 4 years? Is this 5 years? I always get screwed up on how dates like that work.
I don't know.
So
Does it work
18 to
when, like,
19, 19 to 20, 20 to 21, 21 to 22, 22 to 23. 5 years.
wow,
5 years. Yep. Holy shit.
wow.
God. Things are so different now.
Well,
In
to be
any
fair, we
case. Oh, go
Well, to
on.
be
Go on.
fair, I was just gonna say, to be fair, we do it every other week, and then there's been
Yeah.
portions where we just like went for like months
Yeah, there's like a
with
month
no
off
shows.
here, a
So
month off there. Just it's a
yeah.
life conflict. We're gonna have that next year. Because I have a big vacation planned for next year.
Ooh,
And it's I'm not even gonna like try to swing an episode in between it. It's like
yeah,
we're going on break for a month. Sorry everybody. Um, but in any case, we're back again to continue our discussion about the lore book Inspiral, the Root of Nightmares, lore book Inspiral. On our last episode, we talked through the first half of the book. We actually read the entries and discussed connections to previous lore because a lot of the first half of this book had throwbacks to previous lore entries. Things like Book of
yes,
Sorrow was actually a huge one. Nokris was featured. Eris Morn, just in general, the Vex. And throughout this book, it's kind of showing how the darkness has been, how the witness has been involved in pretty much everywhere. Like they've had their fingers in every pie. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it's a good book. And this episode, we are going to continue reading. We're going to finish reading the rest of this book. And yeah, so do you just want to get started with the lore card?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. From Destiny Armory Defined, this week's lore card is Thorium Holt Hood.
Yeah. Okay, so this one was a throwback. I've done this one before, but I didn't do it justice because I focus more on I focus more on the stuff that relates to Destiny. What's really cool about this one, and this is one of those lore entries, lore cards, flavor text, whatever, that we've had for a long time that sparks like I don't know what it is. Every time it's mentioned, everybody's like, "Yeah, are we going to get the Manhattan Zone? You know, are we going to get this explorable area, and we'll finally learn what happened to, these
Yeah,
characters in game?" Yeah,
there's like a
it's one
lot
of
of
those ones.
American locations that get like, when are we going to see it? I want to see this, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
probably looks all the same.
like Chicago.
Yeah, old
People the swamps.
Chicago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it took forever for us to finally see what the EDZ was. And the European Dead Zone was mentioned in Destiny 1
Mm-hmm.
on the cloak you would get from the speaker, which we don't even have a speaker anymore. But yeah, um, so it's pretty cool because the flavor text on this one is really where I was trying to, express what they're talking about. Because this one is cool. Because when you dig into this one, you kind of understand what they're trying to talk about. Because the name of the armor is Thorium Holt, which that in and of itself is its own little thing. But I don't know why they chose it to be the name of a PlayStation exclusive that was an exclusive at the time. This is the funny armor that the armor on the helmet. It looks like the top of the PS1 game console. With the
Mm-hmm.
flip top head where you'd put the disc
Yeah.
in and then
Yeah.
you would,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's even got like the little triangle, uh, you know, little triangle on it, kind of like if it was like a PlayStation button or something like that. I don't know if there's any correlation between PlayStation and Thorium Holt or Manhattan at all. I don't know. But the main thing was the flavor text on here mentions Manhattan Nuclear Zone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's got like this ominous text that goes with it, which we've later discovered that this particular character had something to do, like some authority to keep people from this excluded area, and was enforcing that authority. But there were people that were trapped in this nuclear zone, and this was a hero that I'm assuming helped them get out of the Holt, which would have been the hold, the stronghold. Holt is a word for like den barrier area, you know, cement walled fixture, whatever. Um, anyway, so Manhattan nuclear zone. What is the relevance of Manhattan and nuclear with thorium? Well, it's pretty simple. So the Manhattan Project was a top secret World War II government program in which the United States rushed to develop and deploy the world's first atomic weapons before Nazi Germany. Several renowned scientists were initially involved, including Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer. A little bit relevant because of the movie that's out now.
Yeah, that Barbie movie, right?
Yeah, so that's why I kind of chose this one because it's a little bit topical, and it's neat because there's a lot of stuff in Destiny that pops up in real life. So I thought this was a good one to go back to. Um, so here's where it gets kind of interesting. First off, to preface all of this, the Manhattan Project is named the Manhattan Project, but it never was in Manhattan. So I can almost imagine like even if this was the Manhattan nuclear zone, Maybe it's not even in Manhattan. Maybe it's just named that. Who knows? Uh, but anyway, the Manhattan Project was a groundbreaking scientific research initiative undertaken during World War II. It led to the development of the atomic bomb. In the early 1940s, as World War II raged on, the Manhattan Project was initiated by the United States with the objective of developing nuclear weapons before the Axis powers could. So it's like this race to nuclear armament.
Hmm.
We all know, I mean, most of us know the story by now that, we wanted to develop nukes before our enemies did, or that's what we're told in history. Um, this project involves several renowned scientists, including Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer, who worked tirelessly at multiple secret facilities. So these secret facilities were spread all around, but this whole project at all of these facilities was titled the Manhattan Project. Um, Einstein influenced the beginning of the Manhattan Project in collaboration with Leo Szilard. I don't know how you say that, Szilard. Einstein wrote a letter to President Roosevelt in 1939, warning of possible German nuclear weapons research, and proposing that the United States begin its own research into atomic energy. So Einstein got word that basically Nazi Germany might be onto something, and so he urged the United States to hurry up and figure it out before they did, because it could have been devastating. Um, Einstein played no role in the actual Manhattan Project uh, because he was denied security clearance in July 1940 due to his pacifist tendencies. So Albert Einstein, if you don't already know, he was a pacifist. He didn't want, you know, nuclear energy or he didn't want the nuclear energy to be used as a weapon. And so there's the catch 22. E equals MC squared was this groundbreaking formula that he came up with, but also it unlocked, the potential for nuclear weapons. So, he had to wrestle with that. After World War II, he worked to control nuclear proliferation. He even later regretted signing the letter to Roosevelt, saying that had I known the Germans would not have succeeded in developing an atomic bomb, I would have done nothing. The result, however, was the successful creation and deployment of the world's first atomic bombs, devastatingly demonstrated in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. The Manhattan Project, however, this is where the birth of nuclear power came from. So when you think about nuclear plants that create energy and electricity, um, that technology wouldn't have existed had it not been for this. And the sad reality is the two help each other out because uranium as a product is used to make weapons while also used to make energy in nuclear. So the waste that we get is, somewhat justifying the rotation of creating more and more weapons, but we're also using it for energy. So these two things kind of go hand in hand because there's a safer alternative if we wanted to move into that uh, really expensive endeavor, and that's thorium. So, anyway, at the heart of the Manhattan Project was harnessing nuclear energy. This revolutionary source of power originates from the atomic nucleus, where enormous amounts of energy are released due to nuclear fission and/or fusion. Nuclear reactors utilize control fission reactions to generate heat, which ultimately produces steam that drives turbines and generates electricity. This advent of nuclear energy has provided humanity with substantial and reliable power, with nuclear power plants accounting for a significant portion of global electricity production today. So, this is where thorium comes in. Thorium has been identified as a naturally occurring radioactive element that has been identified as a potential alternative fuel for nuclear energy production that is much safer. However, thorium byproducts can't make weapons as good as uranium.
Mhm.
So anyway, thorium is known as a safer and more sustainable alternative to conventional uranium powered nuclear energy. Thorium, while the Manhattan Project famously used uranium as the fuel for the atomic bombs, thorium has gained attention as a potentially safer and more sustainable alternative. And thorium is naturally occurring, and it's a very abundant element that you can find worldwide. It requires less um, constraints and dependence on politically sensitive regions to mine. One of the other appealing things about thorium is its reduced proliferation risk compared to uranium. Um, Also, it's long-lived nuclear, or it produces fewer long-lived nuclear waste materials, minimizing the risk of you know hazards like you think about Chernobyl, the
Mhm.
nuclear power plant that melted down in 1986, and people still can't go to that area because it's radioactive and you'll get sick and die. I mean, it's a mess over there. So thorium, if you had a nuclear meltdown, wouldn't do that. The radioactive elements of thorium is much safer, it's less impact on the environment, and the nuclear waste that comes from thorium is like, I don't know, it's ridiculous. It would be like holding one pea in your hand versus a 50-gallon drum full of peas of waste, right?
Mhm.
That's the significant difference. It's insane amounts of uranium waste versus thorium waste. So thorium is like really efficient. However, thorium reactors are very expensive to create. So anyway, without getting into the techno garble of it all, um, the thorium hole in this particular piece of armor is interesting because it mentions the Manhattan zone. And so I thought that was a neat little tie-in because the two wouldn't have had existed without one another throughout history. And so this is kind of neat to think about this super future in which destiny um, exists, and to kind of imagine that during the golden age we had unlocked some ability to create thorium reactors everywhere, which are much safer, and part that was probably a part of our our semi-utopian society that we had created before the collapse, right? It's
Mhm.
kind of neat to think that we had harnessed and we were using all of these like great things versus what we're doing today, which is just kind of you know, not doing it. So anyway, the to sum it all up, the Manhattan Project marked a crucial milestone in human history, introducing the world to nuclear energy. While the project primarily focused on weaponizing nuclear technology, it opened the door to utilization of nuclear energy for electricity generation. And so there you go. So it's funny how you think, oh, we figured something out, and then the world powers want to instantly use it as a weapon. And then you figure
Shocking.
out how to use it. Yeah, yeah. You figure out how to use it as a weapon, and then what's the byproduct? Oh, well, now we have this really neat way of making energy.
Well, uh, segue.
Yeah, segue.
I don't know how to take it from
Uh,
that.
yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So anyway, wrap it up in a tight little bow. The lore seems to imply that there were these people that were trapped in a nuclear zone in Manhattan, and they were held up in a Holt, which probably was some underground, lead covered wall that maybe was originally intended for nuclear power. I don't know. That's where my mind goes to, and it's just neat that there was this one particular hero that went in there and saved these people. Uh, so like this event that happened. It's kind of like the Six Coyotes and the folklores we have inside of Destiny are neat about these heroes that were around.
Mhm.
So Maybe one day we'll get to Manhattan, or maybe it'll actually be in Chicago.
I mean, I don't know. Do you think we would? I don't think that's a it,
I don't know. I mean, at this point, we have so much environment that looks like the EDZ,
yeah.
and I mean, even the swamps now, like they could hodgepodge that together and call it whatever they want. Like, here's the swamps of Chicago.
And
Here's
that's
the Manhattan nuclear zone.
that's kind of what I mean where it's like in what realm would these zones actually be interesting to go to? Which is kind of uh it'd be nice if in a perfect world you can just have everything and it's like here's this whole fleshed out map and it's for one mission and it's like it makes sense. It's like, oh, the Manhattan nuclear zone, the Vex are doing this there. You have to go stop them, and it's like, oh shit, that's really cool. But the
Yeah.
resource dump of that, where it's just like, actually, let's just put it in the EDZ because it's basically the same thing.
Uh-huh. Well, and then that's the other thing is like Bungie is notorious about mentioning things, not doing anything about it, and then years later they bring it up again. And either it's more fleshed out story in the lore, or it all of a sudden is a place we go, you know. So who knows, like what they're, planning on doing,
Hmm.
you know. If you mention a gun, you better use it later. Anton's rule,
Hmm. Um.
Chekhov's gun.
Well, so it we were kind of talking about that like a little bit before the show, and I said maybe we should actually talk about that. We were saying how different things are now. And a big thing of that is like, and we've probably actually said this before on the show, but like Bungie's philosophy on like what they want their story to be has changed, where they wanted us to be the only thing that really mattered, and everyone before, well, they were before, don't worry about them. So like they had like Saint 14 and Osiris and Kabir and all these people who are these like these legends, and it was supposed to be like, oh, these are really cool legends, I'm better than them, I'm able to do more than them, they don't matter. However, in reality, the players like glommed onto it and they're like, I want to see Saint 14, I want to meet Osiris. And it's like, well, okay,
Yes,
Bungie had to like pivot to like give us what we were saying we desired.
that's
So
right.
uh, maybe there's a future after the Light and Dark saga, because as it is now, I can't see them giving us a terrestrial location.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly. A lot of the elements and stories that are in the game are because of us as a
Mm-hmm.
community. I've been saying this forever, but we very much influence the writing
Yeah.
in the game and what happens next because of that hunger and the desire to know more about these seeds that they planted early on. Not stripping away anything from the writers because these were all created by them, obviously, but our insatiable need for knowing things has driven that story arc uh, in the narrative. And it's because, it becomes popularized by the game and the in story mythologies and the perspectives that the characters have and who can we trust and who can we not trust. I mean honestly, I don't even think half of the stuff in the game could exist without the impact our community had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think so. The funny thing is you know how we mention Ahamkara all the time. My mind always does this, and it's probably a bad thing, but my mind always does this thing. Like we talk about the characters who made these wishes on the Ahamkara, and I always think about us as a community. Every time we wish for something in game, and we wish for the story to be this and that and the other. It's very parallel,
Yeah. No,
and it's
I
and it's
see
kind
where
of
you're coming from.
yeah, and it's kind of weighted because you got to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, as like a viewer, as a member of the the community and stuff, you think you know what you want, and you say, "Oh, I want this. It's so easy. Just give me this, and I'll be happy." But that's not how it works. Like
Right.
at some point, and this is kind of like not in defense of the recent like state of the game, which a lot of people were like they're kind of just saying like fuck you, we're making the game we want to make. But at some point, a developer has to be like, we're just going to make the game that we want to make. We hope you enjoy it.
Right.
Because if they're being bound to make this like amorphous thing from input from millions of people who are all various inputs, they're not going to make
Yeah.
anything worthwhile from it. They need to have like a central idea of what they want it to be, and you might not like it, you know? And
Right. And at the end of the day, they have to make money. So like
yeah,
there's always that on top of it too. So like regardless of what's happening, it's just I would say it's
well,
not everything is going to be for everybody.
yeah. I and as much as I understand that they do need to make money, there is th- on the topic of like state of the game things where they said like seasonal not seasonal like primary playlist armor sets are difficult to make. Well, clearly
Right.
not,
Yeah,
because
I saw that.
you
Yeah.
make so many. It just, and it's
Yeah.
not, I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're ugly, but there is a clear
Right.
difference in like
Well, okay, so like there's this thing that happens and I often tell in the real life, in my real world job, I often tell as kind of a consultant to some of these people that run these businesses, one
hmm
of the things that I say is there is a psychology of the consumer. And so
mm,
the consumer has this inherent value that they put on things. And whether that be because it was easy to obtain, and I'm putting this back in the Destiny world, but whether that be it was easy to obtain versus how it looks, how rare it is, stuff like that. So why is an exotic valuable? Why
hmm
is a piece of armor valuable? Why is a gun valuable? Why is this the thing that people desire, in game? You have to put it, you have to consider the psychology of the consumer in a way that drives them to want or need that thing, right?
yeah,
And it's not necessarily a nefarious thing. It's just like, well, we have to make it desirable and worth your time and effort to put into it. And so
yeah,
there's an inherent value that we ascribe to everything. And so one of the things that I saw in one of the replies under, all of that little discord that was happening around the fact that what was the state of the game that everybody's getting upset about right now.
hmm
Um, I saw in a reply somebody said, well, they could just bring back all the Destiny 1 armor. It's already there. Just throw it back in the game.
I mean, it's
And
not as
they have a
simple as that, but I do see where they're coming from.
right. And
uh
so the argument that, we can't make more armor because it takes more time and stuff like that. Like I don't see that either because like there's tons of it,
yeah,
there's tons of stuff that we would want from D1 even. Just you could put the original set that Warlock, Hunter, and Titan came with at the very beginning of the game, and we would be like, "This is awesome," you know what I
yeah,
mean? And it's
there's
because
there's a
now at
number
this
of
point in the
D1 sets I
game,
would love to have.
right? And it's because we don't have them. It's because
Yeah,
they're valuable, they're rare, they don't exist. I
well,
just on
not
a
because of
whim,
that. They were just a lot of the D2, like current state of like D2 hunter sets. It's not it's not for me. They don't
right?
capture what I'm looking for a lot of the
Right.
time. So it becomes like when I get like an exotic armor piece, I try to like build a set around the exotic because that's like the centerpiece. And then I end up
Yeah.
using the same other pieces just with this one
Same.
exotic. And it's just like I wish I had more
Same.
variety of like usable style.
Yeah, and that's one other thing that I wish that they would lean into more is how we get the exotic ornaments for weapons and armor. What I wish they would do is I wish they would take drastic lefts and rights more
hmm
often because they don't enough. Like you get what is it? The Stompies, right?
Mm-hmm.
and there's two exotic ornaments that go to the Stompies, but they all have a similar idea that is same idea, with the braces on them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Why not just take a hard left to Crazy Town and make it like, monster legs, or make it like, a set of blue jeans that you broke in. You know what I mean? So that way they can build out the way they want to look a little bit more, you
Yeah.
know.
No, and it's unfortunate because it's like
Yeah.
I try to be sympathetic. I try to understand, but at some point it's just like, all right, like I've understood enough. Like,
Yeah.
Or, I
Yeah.
mean, I when they repositioned it to be like, okay, we're gonna do annual sets, like annual Iron Banner, annual Trials of Osiris, annual playlist armor sets. I'm like, that sounds great. Like, you have it for the year. If you really like it, it's
Yeah.
there. You're not missing out if you couldn't really play this
Yeah.
season. I was like, I'm for that. That makes so much sense. I'm a big fan. But then to backtrack and it's like, or maybe never again. It's like,
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah. And and back to my earlier point, it's the psychology of the consumer. So we're saturated right
Yeah,
now.
that's true.
The game has a ton of stuff, and so even with all of that stuff in there, there is an inherent value that we place on all these items. So like if you see somebody wearing something, you know where it came from and what it took to get that. If it was like something really difficult, or if it was just, hey, go buy this,
That
right?
used to be the
So
thing,
we
right?
we yeah.
It used to be
I mean,
like, oh my god, they have that.
it's like when people would get upset at each other in D1 about Gallahorn. Like, oh, did
Hmm.
you just go buy this? Huh? Or did you earn it? You know what I mean? It's like, really,
I bought it
guys?
week 2, so yes, I did earn it.
Yeah, Vault of Glass is where I got mine.
No, I
Second
actually got it
run.
in Crita's End.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Yeah. That was a fun time getting Gallahorn and Crita's End for me. It's probably like one of my like biggest memories because it was just so stupid. I was with like a new clan
Yeah.
running Crita's End, and we did the Death Singer. So it was like the encounter just before the final encounter, Crota. And maybe we'll be seeing this next in a few weeks. We'll be seeing Crota
I
again.
hope
That'd be
so. I
that'd
really
be
hope so.
interesting. I'd prefer Crota over Leviathan, but I would prefer Wrath of the Machine over everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, so in any case, where it was the Death Singer and it drops and everyone sees that it drops or whatever, so and so got Galahorn, and there is this like it couldn't have been more than like 13-year-old kid in the raid, and he's like, who has it, who got it, and I'm like, I did. And he's like, equip it, I want to see that you got it. And I got it, and he's like, the least deserving person got the
Yeah.
exotic, got the Galahorn. And I was like, what the fuck.
Right.
It's just like
Right. The
so
least
mad at
deserving.
me that
Yeah.
he's like insulting me, and I'm like, bro, I don't care. And
Yeah.
I was so excited. I equipped it and I used it on Crota, and it was terrible because it wasn't
Yeah.
leveled
Because
up.
you had to level it up. Yeah.
Yep. And I
That's
was like,
right.
this is worse than everything else I have. Why would I ever use this?
So my first drop in Vault of Glass was hard light, and everybody was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, cool, you got an exotic." It's hard light. Who cares? So
Yeah.
then the second run of Vault of Glass, it was these are the first two times I ever ran Vault of Glass. The first one I got hard light. The second time I got Galahorn right at the end, and it was just like you're describing. Fire team that had been banging their head against the wall, and then in comes this blueberry just hitching a ride, and I got Galahorn, and everybody was like, "Dude, what?" Like just mad
Yeah.
at me about it. But the funny thing is I got Galahorn, and it took me probably 3, 4 months before I ever upgraded it
I always
because
had. Go on.
I mean materials are really rare. You
Yeah.
had to use all that.
It
Yeah,
was raid materials back then too. It was like
yeah,
Ascendant
yeah.
Energy, right?
Ugh.
I always had really good
And then
luck back then, like in D1. I did Vault of Glass after I did Crota's End. I didn't do Vault of Glass until like much later, obviously. And my first run, I got Fatebringer, I got
nice.
Atheon's Epilogue, I got Vex Mythoclast, and I got another one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I got like all the ones that people wanted on my very first
That's
run.
insane.
And we were joking because I got Fatebringer, and everyone's like, "Oh fuck you! This is your first run, and you got Fatebringer because you get it at like the
Yeah,
Templar." And then
yeah.
we go and do Atheon, and I get Atheon's epilogue, and I got like something else there, like a helmet or something. And they're like, "Oh my god, what the like?" Mad at me even more. And then someone was like, "Well, at least you didn't get Vex Mythoclast." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Right, you didn't get Vex Mythoclast, right?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't get Vex Mythoclast." And we go back to the tower, and it was in my postmaster.
That's
So
awesome.
I did get it, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, guys. In fact, I did get Vex with the class."
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah,
Wow.
we don't. I feel like we don't really have those moments anymore, which is a little upsetting.
Well, and it's like I was saying, we're saturated and the
Sure.
rarity is not there like it used to be. And I mean, it's because we all clamored for making our time worth more. That's part of it, as players. We want to be rewarded accordingly and fairly for what we do, but also you have to open it up to more people. Like I understand in-game content, there are weapons and armor that revolve around that. So lock it up behind those walls. That's fine by me. You know, like
Hmm.
if you want Iron Banner, go play Iron Banner. If you want the raid weapon, go play the raid. Stuff like that. Or
Hmm.
I wish they would bring more stuff that was geared towards strikes.
Yeah.
Um, Epochral. So it's funny you mentioned Fatebringer. Epochral, or Epochal integration. I keep trying to throw an R in there for some dumb reason. Epochal integration is neat because it mirrors Fatebringer in so many ways, but nobody plays with it, and it's not considered to be like a chase weapon, even though it's tied to the Veil containment, which opens up the entire lore that we've been getting lately, and that's been which is ironic and somewhat cool because it has to do with this whole, like we're talking about in Inspiral. It has to do with this element of taking everything we've had over the last 10 years and just kit bashing it together, and then
Hmm.
kind of coming up with this whole, like, this is what the story is, this is what the saga, because even the lore and epochal integration mentions cobbling together all of these familiar weapons, but also harnessing the power of the veil
Yeah.
as its supplemental energy that the gun uses, which fires very similarly to the way Fatebringer does, where the enemies explode. It's just you have this extra little thing that comes out beside the gun as you're shooting it.
I
So
was actually using
anyway,
it the other day. I liked it. It wasn't terrible, but I do agree. It's not like I've heard anyone like once they've gotten it, no one was like, "Oh my god," because it was just here you go, you did it, you did the
yeah.
thing.
And let's be honest, when you had Fatebringer, you didn't use it all the time
I
because
used it all the time.
we had so many things that revolved around elements. So you had to have Solar, Void, and Arc in your, and Fatebringer was a legendary that you could equip as Solar. And
Arc.
so, no, I'm just saying, like when you went to go do hard, you know, to do all your bounties and to do hard content in
Yeah.
D1, somewhere around the middle to the end, if you wanted to go in there, you would equip one of each element, so that way when you encountered enemies, you had something to use. You know, Otherwise you were the solar guy, or you were the arc guy, or you're the void. I don't have a void weapon, and here's a stupid minotaur coming at me with a shield.
Yeah, well,
So
Fatebringer was Arc.
Fatebringer was arc. I thought it was solar.
I swear to
Are you
God, it was
sure?
fuck. I'm pretty sure.
Is this a Mandela thing? Fatebringer, solar. I thought it was solar. I'm probably wrong.
I mean, it had Firefly.
Well, I knew it had fire. Oh yeah, but no, I knew it had Firefly, but I thought it was always solar. Was it
Yeah.
not?
No, it was always Arc, to my
What?
knowledge. But yeah, I
Well,
know what you
whatever it
mean because like
was.
the raid
Yeah,
because that was back in the days of primary special where all of your primary ammo was kinetic. and all of your special ammo was energy. There was no such thing as a kinetic special, and
Yes.
air quotes,
Yeah, there you go.
no such thing as a, or all, I guess air, because there was fucking No Land Beyond and like
Yeah.
what was that, Universal Remote. There was, it's just,
But what? They
yeah.
were horrible.
Well,
They were not viable
No
solutions.
Land Beyond wasn't horrible. That was great in PvP. I love that gun.
Yeah, but
I was an
but
asshole with
like
that.
it took forever to load that weapon, so you had to
But I
get
mean,
in
it
and
was
out of
just
combat quick.
you had to like learn how to use it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it would be
It
like, all
took.
right, I'm not getting the kills with this. Let's put it away and put something else on. But there would be days where it's just like, man, people just want me to shoot them, don't they?
Yeah.
In any case, we're getting way off
Yep.
track.
Yep.
We actually have to start reading if we want to finish this book today, and I
Let's do it.
absolutely want to
Let's
finish this
go.
book today. So the first entry here that we're going to start reading is Dark Glass, and this is narrated by a surviving ghost of the Kentark 3 fire team. And so if you don't remember who the Kentark 3 fire team is, they were a fire team that went into the Black Garden during the Shadowkeep era, and they seem to be the first guardians who started to wield stasis. And it kind of broke their team up because one of them, excuse me, I believe one of them killed the other two. The details of it were a little muddy because on the Garden of Salvation armor, you had the perspective of one of each. So it's like the
Oh,
Titan
that's
had
right.
the,
Yeah.
yeah, Titan had this person's perspective, the Warlocks had this person's perspective, and the Hunter had the third person's perspective, each
Yeah.
going through the same events, just with the different whose eyes you're looking out of. So that was a little complicated.
Yeah.
But they haven't forgotten about the Kentark 3, Bungie, I mean, because here they are getting dropped in again. So we might do a Kentark 3 episode if
Mhm.
it seems like a thing to do. I will read it.
Appropriately named Dark Glass.
Yeah. A reverie of a loyal ghost, changed and quiet, but always steadfast. It leaves behind a gently glowing data fragment to mark its passing. We were in the garden, and I was going to die, and then I didn't. I watched my guardian speak to himself and not himself, a being that wore his shape, spoke with his voice, and offered him salvation. Salvation in the form of forgetting. I didn't know darkness could do that. I didn't know any of us really understood it. And where did that leave me? A loose end, that's what. Any reasoning being any reasoning being would have spotted that. Taking someone's memory does no good at all if they have someone right there to tell them all about it. I don't know if my guardian thought about that. The mirror of him definitely did. I tried to run. A grasp from out of the darkness caught me. I lost something there, like I was taken apart and put back together with the missing part. Like I was really nothing more than the machine. The traveler's blessing and my own bright heart meant nothing at all more than copper and glass. And when I thought about anything again, anything that wasn't an infinite abyss with no stars, my guardian and I were outside the Black Garden. We had lost them, and I couldn't tell him, and nothing was the same. I don't speak anymore. He doesn't know why. I can't even speak to explain, and I don't know where my voice is, or even if I want to speak at all. Maybe it took that, the memory of my voice. I still remember what happened. I wonder why that thing that pretended to be my guardian didn't just kill me or change me further, make me something broken and unknowing. I don't know if it understood that I love my guardian despite everything. Maybe it counted on that, that I would always bring him back, even if I had nothing else in me but that. I think the voice, the wrong presence in the darkness that the forgetting his team would make him I think the voice, that wrong presence in the darkness, thought that forgetting his team would make him malleable. But it's the other way around, really. Without them, my guardian is impossible to shift aside, even for me. And that power in the garden, the one that turned them all on each other, I have my suspicions. I'm an honest ghost, but I've known a lot of con artists. The power and the offer, the curse and the salvation, Were they all the same in the end? The same thing? The same voice in the darkness? If nothing else, I know at least that thing, that grasp which caught me, isn't the same as the darkness itself. Otherwise, I'd never be able to bear my guardian's touch. But I can settle in his hand, and sometimes we still understand each other. Like meaning moves from me to him without the need for words at all. We're different, but we're alive. It's enough. And so, from this book, it's referencing a perspective of, I believe, Libsyn 13. And so I have the Cloak of Temptation from the Garden of Salvation raid, and I'll just read that really quick. Libsyn 13 leaned hard against the boulder and reloaded. I didn't want this. He leapt up as the grenade he'd been expecting landed. Shots tore through the brush and kicked up stone on the other side of the boulder, but he was already moving up that slope, using the grenade's explosion to cover his movement. A quick peek from his new vantage point revealed no sign of them downslope. A day ago, they would have taken the bait. Yardum 4 would have run up and make a shield to cover Rikana. Then she would have jumped over it and to land behind the boulder, a comet of energy that would meteor down to finish him off. He taught them to be more patient. What did you want? Yardum 4 called from about 3 o'clock, moving to Lipson 13's right. But it could have been a feint. You accepted. What did it offer you? From farther to the right, it hadn't been a feint. Lipson 13 threw a grenade right where he knew Yardum 4 would be, and then turned. Rakana stood a few feet away. She'd crept up while he was forced on Yardum 4. She'd probably been on the move before he'd spoken. It was what he'd have done. He almost smiled. Her fist glimmered and quaked with an unfamiliar power. She only had to release her grip, and that energy would rip through him, burning without fire. It offered me what I most desired, but in the end, it could never give me that. It could only take it away. Lipson 13 lifted his gleaming eyes to meet Rakana's cobalt gaze and raised Divinity. Divinity, of course, being the raid exotic from Garden of Salvation.
Hmm.
So, just another look into the darkness's encounters. This one, interestingly, is the ghost saying, "I know a con man. I've known a lot of con artists. The power and the offer, the curse and the salvation, were they all the same in the end? The same thing, the same voice in the darkness." So it's basically saying like it's all a scam to accept the darkness in the first place, to accept whatever blessing the witness is trying to give you.
Yeah. Almost like they're basically wrapping up every thing that's been a mystery as being as saying that all of these things in game that we've thought of, like, the nine that gave the drifter his power, the hive that got their worm power, which we already know about, and then like just all of these things are, like, Lisbon is questioning, are they all from the same source, the darkness? Like,
Hmm.
almost like I've known a lot of con men. I know a lot, like, all these things they mentioned are con artists in general. I know a lot of, like, all of these things that he's mentioning seem to be like he's trying to just lump them all together as one big. Do these all come from the same source? Question
Yeah,
mark.
yeah. I think I need glasses. Everything I was reading, I was kind of struggling because everything was like really fuzzy.
Oh no. Yeah, you probably do. Either that or you need to eat some sugar.
Well, it's definitely not that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I had coffee this morning
Oh, well, there you go. You gotta you gotta have your coffee.
and white bread. So there's definitely sugar in the things I ate this morning.
Not me. I didn't eat any sugar this morning. I'm trying to stay away from the stuff.
I mean, so am I, but to an extent. I don't drink soda. That's a big thing right there.
That's good. That's a start. That's a start. I've been on the not to plug them like they sponsor the show or anything, but I've been on that liquid death.
Are you just saying that because you just saw me drinking it?
Oh, are you? Oh, you are drinking it. No.
And I got I
There
got
it is.
I got four
Is that the
cases.
tea? Is
No,
that
this
the
is a
agave?
mango chainsaw. The only tea I like is
Oh,
Grim
that's a good
Reaper.
one.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I literally have four boxes of it right here. I either just drink like filtered water or liquid death, and I like to have the liquid death because I'll bring it to like work and stuff, and it's
Yep,
convenient to bring to work. But yeah,
it is.
I have mango chainsaw, severed lime, and then the carbonated and uncarbonated just sitting there by my
Yeah,
desk.
yeah, and it's an aluminum can instead of
Yeah,
like a stupid plastic water bottle.
yeah,
So it's good. Yeah, it's good. I love this stuff, and
yeah.
it's dumb consumer in me. I see that nice little packaging, and I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna get that. You know?
I mean, I only even tried it because like one day I was at like a gas station and I was like, well, let's see if
Uh-huh.
this is good, and I was like, okay, no, this is good. Like it's better than like
Yeah.
other water. It's because it's
Oh
not all
yeah.
the same, especially the flavored ones.
Right. Right. You're right.
Yeah, I buy
Well,
them by the case.
that one was a big meat and potatoes one. I don't think the rest of these are like that. No, just glancing at it because I was remembering because that dark glass one seemed to unpack a lot because um when the Kintark fire team that was all turning on each other
Hmm.
as we know from the armor and stuff because they had figured out stasis power and they're like what and like you're the darkness blaming each other for what's going
Hmm.
on and just killing each other. It almost seems like there could have been something more to that we don't know because
Hmm.
I remember when the Drifter was, told the story about being out in the cold and they were blaming each other for the light being gone
Hmm.
and they were killing each other and there were these big serpent snake things, air quotes that were
Yeah.
coming around that was stealing their light and they were blaming each other for it and they were killing each other and then,
Oh, and
ultimately the drift. Right.
that was another thing because I don't remember if that was in this book or not, but I remember when they first talked about it. It was like it was said under the expectation that the Red War happened during the time that they were there, and that
Yes.
when the light turned off, they thought someone figured it out and did it
Right.
to all of them. When in reality, it
Right.
was just Gaul. And then there was kind of like a retelling of it, and I think it was in this book, so we would have talked about it last week. But in the retelling of it, it was like, no, the beast just got crafty. You know, the beasts were all around us, and we started losing our light, and we got paranoid. I'm like, what? Like
Yeah,
that's a weird thing to retcon.
it came from when Drifter was talking to uh what's her name? Sloane.
Mm.
Remember he mentioned that whole little
Yeah, so
story about
that
how
was
they
like
were
2, 3 weeks ago then, episodes
yeah,
ago, not weeks.
yeah, yeah.
Oh shit! You know
Yeah.
what I just
Anyway,
realized?
what?
Last season, I pitched the idea of doing a seasonal lore review, like on this, what would be this episode, and that we were gonna like reach out to someone, like other lore nerds to come on and talk about the
Oh,
season. We'll have to try to get that for next episode.
yeah, let's do that.
See if we can.
Okay.
In any
Well, anyway,
case.
I just wanted to bring that up real quick because I thought maybe you were touching on something because if all the darkness is trying all of these different avenues and paths to gain control over our universe,
Hmm.
maybe Libsyn is onto something. Everything's coming from the same source, and we're just seeing it as that multiple threats, but they're all driven by the same thing.
Yeah, because like it had to be Libsyn, right? Because in this entry, in the Dark Glass entry, it's a ghost saying how someone accepted, right? I still remember what happened. I wonder why that thing pretended to be my guardian and didn't just kill me. Uh,
Yeah,
where was it? I forget.
yeah. No, I
Salvation
got you
prayer.
though. I got you though. That would
And
be interesting to go back and read.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Rakana and Yardam said you accepted it. What did it offer you? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so Lipson had to be the one that accepted Lips. This has to be Lipson Goat.
Yeah, has to be.
In any case, Would you
Hey,
like to read the next one?
sure, I'll butcher it.
Can't be worse than how I did.
How do you pronounce that word? Ire?
I believe it's Iray.
Okay, Ire. Um, a waking dream that appears by night, singing slyly like starlight. It leaves behind a crystallized data fragment to mark its passing. This is that thing again that we were talking about last episode, how there's all these little fragments and these little data things that are left, data lattice fragments, all these little things. We're familiar with them in game too because we find them.
Hmm.
But it's neat that the Inspiral book is these are all found things. Anyway, that was a little bit poetic too. A waking dream that appears by night, singing slyly like starlight. All right, I am diminished. I know this. It behooves a queen to be honest with herself, even if such truths are hidden from advisors and subjects. Leaving the distributary was not a mistake, and, in fact, it was the only possibility, for the expanding wake of the collapse must someday find that safe haven too. But there are always days I regret it. Celestial bodies still spin, most of them. I touched the mind, the being of that terrible distant force, but once, and that was more than sufficient. Even I, awoken and queen, strength of my people, felt inextricably mortal in that moment. I have stared into hard vacuum with nothing but my will to keep my breath in my lungs, and never feared a moment. This, it disquiets me. I should not be afraid. I must not embrace fear. So I turn it over, again and again, picking through the pieces of that one fragmented impression for something more. To look at my own weakness time after time. To understand something is to drain the killing fear out of it. That which is known can be disassembled. There was a version of me that was grateful, no? Yet that more I analyze, the more I ponder, the less I understand. A cacophony of overwhelming weight of presence and thought and intent. A person, but not a person. More than that. Imagine if at first place where the awoken came to be had been nothing but a screaming chaos. In the noise and the oppressive weight, I learned pieces as delicate as spiderwebs, as scattered as stars. I lay them out along each other in my thoughts. Here is purpose, not a singular thesis, but the idea of purpose, vicious and brilliant and driven as ever I was. Here is the shape. I see it as sharpness, like a starless cutout against the distant sky, made clear in negative space. The thoughts of the hive, I might guess, but it's not quite the same. Purpose and sharpness are discrete from each other here. Darkness and the sword. No, darkness, but the sword. Here's the stillness I breathe, and it shatters. But the idea of a perfect, quiet ending remains, lingers into dreams. I think something, if I dream too long enough, I will understand this witness better. The voice not of the darkness, yet in it. But I do not have the time to spend in dreaming. To understand this listless scavenger that claws through our world and cherishes the destruction it leaves as transcendent, risky as all valuable things are, I know another thing from the witness garnered in those bare moments I touched it. Not a why or a how, no home or treasure to point at weakness, only this. Beneath all else, that being cradles rage enough to burn the stars themselves to cinders.
So obviously, this was coming from Marasov. Um,
Yeah.
this one's really interesting, I think, because as we know about the origins of the Awoken, um, the distributary, basically the Exodus Green, right? Green.
Yep. Yep. Excess
The
green.
Exodus Green was fleeing during the beginning of the collapse, and they got caught between what would imaginably be the witnesses attack and the travelers attack, and they kind of got caught right in the middle of that. And in so, Mara like petitioned both the witness and the traveler and was like, "I'm not a part of this. We are not a part of this. Let us not be a part of it." And so
Right.
they were given this like pocket universe of the distributary where time flowed very differently. Um, so they were able to advance in ways while we kind of stagnated a little bit during the collapse and didn't really improve. And so while in the distributary, Mara was kind of the leading force on this idea that they were given something and nothing is given for free. And because of that, she wanted them to leave. She wanted them to leave the awoken, all of the awoken people to leave and go back to help the survivors of humanity. That's always been her goal from the very beginning. Whereas most of
Yeah.
the other awoken felt more that why would we leave? This is paradise. And so like Mara did some like shady, underhanded things to like uh, spread turmoil and war and death in a place where otherwise there wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And
So she could ascend to the rank of what queen.
yeah, so that she can become queen, so that she can gain followers, so that she can convince people that yes, in fact, we should leave. And she has awoken behind her to come back to leave the distributary. There are still, presumably, awoken in the distributary who did not side with her, but her and her people left to become the awoken of the reef. And
Right.
um and so it's really interesting to think about that now, to have this entry here where Mara's kind of reflecting on her own actions, uh,
Yeah.
because we've now had these interactions with the witness where it seems like the witness is not only trying to defeat the traveler, the gardener, to become the winnower that the witness desires, that it is also trying to prove that the philosophy of the chaos that the traveler invokes is false. And
Dude, dude, this whole thing, this is like, okay, so you know how like Marasov is a sucker for the Tempest or Shakespearean
mhm,
stuff, like we know, like
I thought it was
this entry.
Shurida that was more so.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, it was Shuraido that was into the. You're right, Shuraido and the Shakespeare, and then
Hmm.
Shax read it to hers because she was lamenting the loss of
Yeah,
Ida.
yeah.
Uh, anyway, the way that this is all prefaced is almost it's almost like Edgar Allan Poe.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like what you just said reminded me of the famous quote by Edgar Allan Poe, which is similar to what's the beginning of this, and it's something like, if I can remember it correctly, it's something like everything we see is yet a dream within a dream.
Hmm.
Like even the love that we share is not really love, and one day we'll become aware of this dream that we've been sleeping in, only to dream again about nighttime or like darkness. Like that's I could probably find the quote correct and say it correctly, but that's what that
I
that's
mean,
what that beginning.
it's short. I
Yeah.
can read it, or you can read it if you want to look it up.
Yeah. Okay. I'll look it up real quick. But
Because
yeah, that's what that.
I have it right here.
Oh, you did. Okay.
You just want me to read it?
Yeah. Read it.
Okay. Um, Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let we avow, you are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep. O God, I cannot grasp them with a tighter clasp. O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream?
Holy shit, that's everything right there. Did you just see what I was talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so like omit the obvious words, like the deep and the thematic things that they love to recycle in the game. But but like Mara's wrestling with the fact that she's trying to save everyone, and obviously there's the Ido, which is the one grain of sand, and then the gold, and then the symbolism behind that, right?
Yeah. Um,
Because we're learning that the Dreaming City was locked away. It's
mhm.
called the Dreaming City. It was locked away from reality, and but to be aware of that and to bring yourself out of that and to wake into this other world, which is where she's trying to save everybody, is
Mm,
only to recognize that you're in another dream, and
yeah.
the at the end of everything, the darkness is going to win regardless, and all of the love and loss that you ever had is for naught.
And I think I see what made you correlate these two, because in the second verse, I stand amid the roar of a surf tormented shore, and I hold within my hand the
Yes,
grains of golden sand. In this
Tempest.
entry, but in this entry, yet the more I analyze, the more I ponder, the less I understand. A cacophony and overwhelming weight of presence and thought and intent. A person, but not a person. More than that, imagine if the first place we were, the awoken, came to came to be had been nothing but screaming chaos. So it's like
Yeah,
that's the tormented surf tormented shore. If it had been
yeah,
nothing but screaming chaos, that was one
yeah,
dream within a dream. They had a different dream within a dream.
yeah, yeah. There you go.
Uh,
Nice.
And so what I was saying though was that the witness is trying to prove that the gardener's values and philosophy is false, which they've tried. It has tried to do with us. It tried to petition us to switch sides, saying, if you are the pinnacle of what the gardener desires the universe to be, if I can convince you to turn against the gardener, then I prove myself as true.
Yeah, we're the key.
And that's kind of like what the sword logic is at the just
Yeah.
in regards to like how this because it's going to come up in the next entry, uh which I'm excited for. That's kind of what the sword logic is, where it's like this premise of, if I can prove you false, that proves me true. And
Yeah,
that's
there you
that's
go.
what that's
That's that Boolean Gemini
yeah. Oh,
rationality.
nice.
Yeah,
And that's what the Witnesses War. That's what the Light and Darkness saga completely is. I'm proving you
yeah,
false to prove myself true. And
true. Yeah,
so,
there you go.
and
Go
so
for it.
the next entry here is the cave. And so the narrator is a disciple of the witness, and based on some of the word choices, it might even have been an ahamkara. And I say
Love
that
it.
have been, because if it is an ahamkara, then
They're dead.
they can be dead while not being dead, or maybe this
Yeah,
witness is just truly dead. A delusion of a being long dead, an idea of living only to serve, only for one purpose. It leaves behind a sharp-edged data fragment to mark its passing. There is a conflict in me, O witness, that unsettles your weapon myself. Why is it that you allow flawed understandings of your great work to persist in all those who serve you, even in your disciples? Every one of us seems to have some different conception of your final shape. I do not need reassurance in my own comprehension, only to understand what purpose it serves that you have chosen such disparate servants to carry out your will. Is it a simple answer? Perhaps none who serve you have the capacity to grasp your vision. And so, rather than waste more of your time and attention on explaining something that will never hold, it is enough that they act as your will. The witch in her hive carving single mindedness out of the cloth of the universe, while the whispering nightmare seeking the fullest gamut of existence, the upender destroying all differentiations. Shadows on the wall. In this case, it would be hubris to think that I have understood your work, that I alone among your disciples have grasped what purpose it is we serve. All of us must see darkly reflected. But there is relief in simplification. There is kindness in winnowing. So then, Why is this proliferation permitted? The shadows showing the truth by their casting. Perhaps it is enough to simply trust that we are weapons in your hand, O witness. Even if we cannot see the perfect shape of your plan, we serve it by your wielding of us. Each disciple has come to be only by your will, and so that incomprehension is also in your making. You ask for trust and obedience and promise that whatever you do, whatever finality you achieve, will suit each of your followers perfectly. Your final shape will be 100 promises kept. I have seen the reflections of it through all of we disciples. Through the tracks you leave in the universe, a truth understood through the shadow it casts. There, I have resolved the conflict within my thoughts, and I am at peace again. Once more, I am only your violence and nothing more. The final shape will realize us as we strive. Uh, and so it,
Uh,
it could be an Ahamkara, and
it's gotta be. It's
right, it
gotta
has to
be.
be
It's
though, because it's
gotta
like
be. It has to be.
because an
Has to
Ahamkara
be.
pact is they die
Yes.
for your desire. It's talking about the
Yep.
witness's desires for the final shape.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
your final shape will be
And
100 promises kept, which it doesn't say wishes because that would be too much, but it kind of feels like promises. Or
well,
fill in for
the thing that
wishes.
goes the thing that goes to my mind is when it mentions how it's being wielded as a weapon. And
Hmm.
I've long thought that the Guardians have been duped by the Ahamkara from the very beginning of the game because we've been using them as weapons all along.
We've been using them as
And every time,
armor. Why haven't we been using
yeah,
them as weapons?
well, they are. Well, they are in a way because if you think about like the ornaments for, Toland's creation, and then like some of the other
Mm,
weapons that, yeah, yeah, no, we know
no,
it's
no,
a Hamkara.
I know, I
Yeah. Oh,
understand
oh yeah.
that Toland's ornaments on Bad Juju are Ahamkara
Yeah.
themed. However, I don't consider ornaments as like a canon in existence.
Well, no, I got you there. I got you there. But there
It's a
is
loose
there is
cannon.
some instances. Yeah. So I still am a firm believer that the Ahamkara found a back channel to work through our desire for weapons and armor.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
we've been evoking their power ever since.
You know what's really scary about that entry, though? Your
What?
final shape will be 100 promises kept.
There it is.
So, 100 disciples are out there. We've dealt with three.
That
It
would
makes
be
me,
insane if that was what they're saying.
yeah, it makes me wonder. Like, after light and dark, you have all these disciples who view themselves as nothing more than a weapon in the witness's hand. Well, what happens when you strike that hand away?
Yeah.
Are these weapons just gonna fall to the ground and be useless? Are they gonna be picked up by someone else? Are they gonna like take for their own? Like what's gonna happen here?
Hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah, this has to be an Ahamkara.
Has to be. Has to be. Just the verbiage, the word, how
Yeah.
it's used in the final shape. I mean, we know that the final shape is the witness is mantling the winnower
Hmm.
position, and by doing so, he's using the power to calcify the universe and slice it away. And so
Yeah.
that calcification manifests in many different ways. The calcification manifests in the Ahamkara in the way that they turn to bone when they die.
That's an
The
interesting
calc
correlation.
take, yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, would you like to read the next one?
Sure. Meaning,
And
um,
so the narrator on this one is unknown, but it appears to be multiple voices in the darkness, and so multiple voices in darkness. And so it kind of makes me think: is it like the witness is comprised of many beings, and they're not exactly completely unified?
line, yeah.
They're still in
I,
there.
I was I was thinking it was like the nine, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's read it, and we'll
But
see.
so like think about I guess the witness and then think about the nine while I'm reading it. We'll see which one
Hmm.
sounds better.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
So meaning a dream of a metaphor made starkly. an allegory discussed in study of ontology, in darkness, not unkind. It leaves behind a warped, barely real data fragment to mark its passing. It's so bizarre. Um, there is a voice that echoes across the darkness, and it asks this question: what is the purpose of it all? And there is another voice that calls back and says, listen, I will tell you a purpose. I will tell you of a final shape. Look, there are 100 guildings for this story. It comes down to one key matter. Beings in suffering crave purpose to carry them through. The tyrant consumed by ennui, or the disenfranchised struggling simply to survive. It is the state of mind, the pain which cries out, give me a reason I should suffer so. Let us speak of power and choices. A man comes to a crossroads and asks of the sky, which road shall I take? There is no answer from the sky, nor the wind, nor the earth beneath its feet. But another wanderer on the road, coming from behind and hearing a question, says, I know the way. You should take the Dexter road. If the man agrees, he puts himself in the wanderer's power, ceding his own choices for the implicit promise that this is the correct road, the safe road. And if he disagrees, let us say that the wanderer draws a knife. The man may therefore be made to take the Dexter road. But now the knife goes away. The man will certainly flee. And perhaps even if the knife remains, the man may tire of being threatened and decide the risk is worth fleeing. In this way, the wanderer erodes their own power. If the wanderer says, the wind has said that you should take the road of my choosing, will the man accept the choice made for him? And if the wanderer says, behold, I have seen that the meaning of suffering lies along the Dexter road, will the man give away his own power for longer? It is not easier to accept the guidance of a stranger when the path ahead is unknown.
It's got to be the darkness because that's all con man stuff, right? And we just had the
Right.
entry calling the witness a con man,
Con man. Yeah.
con artist.
Con artist. See, that was why initially I thought, well, maybe it had to do with the nine and the drifter because the drifter was,
Hmm.
uh, but anyway,
Okay.
I don't,
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're
yeah.
coming from. It.
So like it could be, I guess it could be either one.
Yeah. In any case,
Okay.
at the beginning there, it says it again. Look, there are 100 gildings up for this story, talking about what the final shape is. So it's a
Yeah.
another throwback to your final shape will be 100 promises kept. Uh, so it really is pitching these entries here are really pitching this concept that the winnower or the witness is a con artist, and it's leading you down the path. The witness is the wanderer, and it's finding the
Yeah.
people who are saying, what road should I take? Here comes the witness. The witness says, the where is it? I know the way. You should take the Dexter road. If the man agrees, well, blah, 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 blah. Well, what if the witness pulls a knife? Well, the man might flee. The man might risk it. And in that
Yeah.
case, the
Yeah.
witness is losing their power. But if the witness says, the wind has said, you should take the road of my choosing, and it's like that's what it's betting on.
Yeah. There you go. So like if he disguises himself as the wind and just says the wind is saying it,
Yeah.
then you're more apt to listen.
So the witness is disguising itself as the winnower because it's saying
Yeah.
the winnower desires you take this road, because if we go back to that ahamkara entry, let me search the word. If we go back to that ahamkara entry, it says, but there is relief and simplification, there is kindness in winnowing. So then
Yeah.
why is this proliferation permitted? So it's pitching the winnower as a good entity. And then also in our last episode, the final entry we read, Brass Gardeners, it has at the very end function winnow, function simplify, function flatten. So there's simplicity in winnowing. It's this idea
Yeah,
that the here comes the witness, and he's saying, or that it's saying, the winnower has told me which way you should go. That's what it
that's
is.
really interesting. Yeah, I like it. I like that.
I just thought of that as we were reading it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because
All right,
I
well
was
then
already
the last
I
one.
was already thinking con artist stuff, but then I was like, but what's their angle? Like, how is this a con? And now I get it. Now I get it.
Well, then the winnowing, the last one's really going to sum it all up.
Yeah. So let's read that one. This one is another unknown narrator. This one's also possibly the witness, possibly a person who became part of the witness. So it might be before the witness was created, and then while they were still individual beings.
Hmm. Okay.
A dream of friendly conversation with someone impossible to see, cloaked in shadows. It leaves behind an impossible data fragment to mark its passing. Here is what a flower knows. The fact that a flower may know anything is a conceit that will have to be accepted as metaphor, but to constantly qualify into perfected precision wears thin, does it not? So here is what a collection of chloroplasts and pigment can know. The direction of the sun, the presence of the rain, the tangle of the roots, the distress of another plant, the hands of the gardener, whether they prune or transplant or crush. A flower cannot know much else. But the reality of the garden is vast and wild. A flower knows not the fence, a flower knows not the footpath. And yet there is an infinite cosmic garden which is not any less real simply because the flower cannot possibly comprehend it. Let us try this again. Stop me if you've heard this one. A gardener and a winnower sit down to play a game outside of time and creation. Yes? Yes. Then we're agreed. The metaphor stands. Let us iterate. A gardener and a winnower set out their chairs to play a game of flowers. The flowers know only that they grow or wither, struggle or flourish. Sometimes they are touched by one hand or the other, and that influence is the closest they will know of the divine. A flower and a flower spread a flower and a flower spread their leaves to the sun above. Remember that the sun is also a metaphor, a thing said beautifully, winnowed down to poetry, when the truth is too vast to put into words at all. They jostle for space, each competing to the pinnacle of their shape. One flourishes, one withers. Is it the fault of the flower or the fault of its position? A gardener and a winnower sit down to a game called Possibility. This is the game about a garden, which is to say that this is also a game about flowers. Just as a game about a living being must also be a game about organs and bacteria. A gardener and a winnower collaborate to create a protein, whose hand is in the design that shortens one life to extend the rest. Is it the winnower that discovers the first knife? But it is not done without the gardener. This, too, is a tradition. A knife does not come to exist without something that must be cut, a woody stem, a colored petal, a vital vessel, the first victims of the blade. All of these are true. All of these are false, for metaphor simplifies as the knife does. It pairs incalculable concepts into shapes your wrinkly little brains can comprehend. The weight of billions and the simple curve of the planet give you pause. And how then are you to be expected to grasp the forces that created your nth removed creator? So the stories woven with the utmost delicacy in and around the falsehoods are, after it all, true. There was never an option for the knife to not exist in the garden. It was only ever a matter of time and opportunity. And as for the shape of the knife itself, no, that is enough. I will tell you of gardens. They are domesticated things, made in a form. As soon as something is called a garden, it is shaped. The plants require the hand of the gardener, for they have become weak and dependent on tender care. They require the hand of the winnower to cut away the dross, that for they are too incapable to do it themselves. In absence of a hand, either the flowers themselves must rise up to wield the knife, or the garden will resolve meaningless wilderness. You will say, but there are plants that can walk. There are seeds that must be scorched by fire to know growth. Existence is more complex than the simple dichotomy between growth and withering. and there is more heaven and on earth than is dreamt of in this philosophy. And will tell you clearly, there can be no gardens without knives. And
Yep.
so,
This is this is exactly what we've been saying. The winnower is, taken on, or the witness is taken on uh the winnower.
so let me ask you: does this sound like a preacher?
Oh, sure,
Like
absolutely.
that
I
that's
mean,
that's
there's
why
some,
that's why I said it might be one of the people that became the witness, because these were individual people. They were beings with individual thought that were just so collected in their minds that they performed some dark ritual to cast away their mortal form and
yep,
become one great being together. And so this sounds like a sermon, in my opinion, like a sermon being given to say like this is our goal, this is what we do, and they're still facing like rebuke from it. People who are like, I don't know. I'm with you most of the way, but you're going a little too
right,
far. You will say, but there
right,
are plants that can walk. There are seeds that must be scorched by fire to know growth. Existence is more
right.
complex than the simple dichotomy, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I will tell you this clearly. There can be no gardens without knives. And it's like, it's, it's,
Yeah,
um, it's practically propaganda.
right, exactly. Well, it immediately makes me think of one of my favorite flavor texts, which
Hmm.
is the it came from a stupid sparrow from SRL, but it was the rose
Really.
turns toward, yeah, yeah, it did. So the rose turns towards the sun, but its roots grow deep in darkness. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like summing up the fact that the rose turns towards the sun, the light, but its roots grow deep in darkness. So like
I,
one can't exist without the other.
I gotta let you know, that's actually not the full quote. This is from EV39 Lumos. The full quote is: "The rose turns towards the sun, but its roots grow deep in darkness. This item is non-returnable."
Yeah, yeah. Don't try to return this. SRL's gone. That's sad.
It is a little sad. I understand why it can't. They can't. If it were as simple as just putting it in Destiny 2, they would have. It's not as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, that was good. That was a perfect summary of all we know about the witness.
Yeah, I really I know people were really upset about, and that's why I would like to have a seasonal lore review. I know people were really upset about the origins of the witness and saying how this makes everything pointless, and it's like it doesn't though, because now it's like giving it
Yeah,
like it's this new angle that everyone's just refusing to look at.
that's right. It's a head, it's a body, it's a physical body to look at, which we've been listening to the soul this
Hmm.
whole time. And now we get to see, its physical form, which is the witness that's, keep
Hmm.
saying it, mantled this position
Yeah.
of the winnower.
No, you said that like immediately after, and
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what the witnesses, excuse me, trying to do. They're trying to create the truth of what their society believes in.
Yep.
Well, that's
Well,
going to be it
boom.
for our episode today. We will be back on August 20th, and hopefully, hopefully we can have guests involved. It will probably be a lore review. If not, we'll figure something else out that will be fun. So if you want to find more of us, you can find us on Twitter at Loose Cannon Show, exactly as that's spelled, right down there. At Loose Cannon Show. Our pinned tweet has everywhere that you can find where our podcast goes live. YouTube, Anchor, Spotify. Spotify is Anchor now. Stitcher, Apple, Google, everywhere gets it. So if you came in late and you want to hear the beginning, you want to hear the middle, you want to hear the end, that's where you go to find it.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.